hands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. If anybody would like a copy, this is the town budget. This side is the expenditure side. This side is the revenue side. Please feel free to grab one if you'd like. The Board of Ed is making some quick copies of theirs, so once that comes up, feel free to grab it. We'll put it to the side. Again, if you'd like to speak tonight, please just sign on the yellow pad of paper so your name can be called. When you are called, if you could just stand up, state your name and address so the secretary can hear you. This is your public hearing, so whatever you would like to say, but please always be mindful and respectful of your town's fellow people. All right, we will start with Sarah Andrews.
Sarah Andrews, 144 Main Street. First, I would like to say to the Board of Finance, I've seen improvement with some of the communication with the other boards in town over the last few years. So whatever we're doing to try to better the community as a whole seems to be going in a positive direction. On the other hand, I would also, as a parent in the community of a child who's a junior, going to be a senior, who's gone through East Windsor School District, I strongly encourage the Board of Ed budget. We've taken these 2% for so many years, and we really can't afford it. There's Band-Aids on everything in the school district right now, and the Band-Aids are going to fall off. There's nothing left to save. Last year we were able to pass the budget. I think they were able to keep it functioning, and it's needs, it's not wants. And I think the Board of Ed is recognizing new trends, and they're trying to make accommodations to account for things in their budget. So going forward, losing, anything, sports, curriculum, music and arts. I know we have a strong music and arts program with 200 kids. That would be catastrophic to lose any of that, because at the elementary level, they have needs. And then you get to the high school, they're going into the world, they're graduating, they're going to college. They need to have this stuff on their resumes, so we have to provide it as a community. So I ask for your strong consideration to support the Board of Ed budget, what they're presenting you tonight. Thank you.
Al Floyd.
Hello, Al Floyd, 40 Winton Road, East Windsor. The Board of Selectmen have recommended a zero budget increase for the library. I think that's very unfortunate. Connecticut spends about $31.61 per capita on libraries. And with that $31.61, Connecticut ranks 30 among 50 states. An affluent state like Connecticut ranks 30 among 50. Now, that number includes, our budget number includes $76,000 that the library contributes every year. So if you want to get to the right number for the library, you add $76,000 to our request, and then you increase that by 20% to get us to that $31.61. And that would just keep us in the lowest 40% in the country.
Thank you. Teresa Schwartz.
Hi, Teresa Schwartz, 52 Norton Road. I heard the discussion about potentially delaying the replacement of the Public Works trucks. I live here in town. I served as Assistant Public Works Director in East Hartford, where I was involved in fleet management. We had a larger fleet there. The American Public Works Association recommends regular preventative maintenance and regular replacement of vehicles once they get past the end of their useful life. The operations costs go up, the maintenance costs go up, and with such a small department, if they don't have the truck they need, then they need to rent it. You have the rental costs on top of the maintenance costs. And in the long run, it would cost the taxpayers more money. So I think it's one of those situations where it would be a penny wise and a pound foolish. So I just wanted to take my 2 cents.
Thank you. Rich, Dick, Pippin.
Richard Pippin, 37 Willow Road, East Windsor. Just a couple of comments. I see stuck in the fire services / Broadbrook Fire Department as a handout of $335.15, to which basically a private entity. If you choose to hand the money out, at least budget, they should furnish a budget, and it needs to be followed and sent to the treasurer. Disbursements will be made on the budget. None of this business of handing the money to them and, it vanishes. And the other thing, when I heard a presentation from the Board of Ed, We now have to have 2 buses going to ag schools. What is it, 500,000? That's kind of fancy. From my understanding, and don't take it as law, that East Windsor years ago made a deal with Rockville Vernon for the ag students to go there. And in turn, we have to pay for those seats whether they go to Suffield or not. I think somebody was just shopping schools. And I don't think that money should be spent. I know a lot of kids that come out of Rockville, graduated from that ag program, and are doing very well. And a few more of them are coming out this year. What are we going to do if we got to pay for all that money and nobody goes? I think that's one little savings we can make. Thank you.
Louise Flynn? Oh, Lewis, sorry. Sounds like you need a dance.
I'm speaking on behalf of the Wells Point Fire District. Just a couple of things. I won't go through the whole deal because we're on for Tuesday night in the budget workshop. But we're seeking a stipend here to try to deal with an inequity where our taxpayers on the west side of town are paying, in effect, 2 fire taxes. One, they're paying their town taxes, which supports a good deal of the Broadbrook Fire Department, and they're paying a tax to us to support the Burroughs Point Fire Department. We're asking that we be included. It's been requested, and I'm asking that, we're not even getting the amount that Broadbrook gets, but we're asking at least for the amount requested. There was a moment ago I heard we should be responsible. We had met earlier with you folks, and we recently passed a resolution and permitted me to sign an agreement, a memorandum of understanding with the selectmen that any money we will get will be used in lieu of taxes. In other words, be applied to that year's taxes and lower the taxes for the taxpayers in Warehouse Point. That has been signed and by myself and Mr. Maynard. So I wanted your board to know that. We'll be back with more particulars next week, but the one thing I say is this. If you lived in Broadbrook and you were unfortunate enough to have a fire on your house, and you looked out and the fire trucks were there, you'd see 2 different fire trucks. You'd see one from Broadbrook and one from Warehouse Point. And we're being treated as less than equal. We answer the calls here, they answer our calls, which is a good thing. It's a cooperative, small town effort. But we're asking your help so it erases an inequity, or at least lightens the inequity. Thank you.
Elise Spielberg?
Elise Spielberg, 244 Rye Street. I'm going to be speaking on behalf of 2 organizations. The first is the Library Association of Warehouse Point, also known as the Warehouse Point Library. And I too am disappointed that we were seeing an increase from the amount of money we received from last year. Libraries are interesting places for you to all. Sometimes you don't realize the importance of a library until you're an adult, and all of a sudden you step back and you think, wow, how important was that library to my life? And recently there have been many articles from many adults who have commented, and the library has really shaped who they became as people because of the opportunities that you have there. Libraries are no longer just a place to go for books. Libraries are places where a community organization can come in and use our services. The library is a place where children can come in for activities, whether they're crafts or movies or book storytelling. Library is a place for computers that have people who don't have access, have free access to computers. Libraries are a place to take out DVDs on a cold winter night when you're stuck in your home. Libraries are a place where you can now download free music from our library service on Freeway. So libraries provide an awful lot of things. And at the same time, our library spends so much of its money maintaining itself because we're an old building. And a lot of our money has to be maintaining the building so that we have a building that stands for people to come to. That is a huge portion of our library. To receive no increase is sort of just disappointing, especially in the age when things are costing more. Digital services are costing more, internet access is costing more, computers are costing more. So I ask you to please go back and think about the importance of a library, not only to children, but to adults, and to who we become as adults when we get older, to who we become as adults. We're all older when we're adults. So I ask you to go back and really rethink that. Thank you. The other is the Board of Education. Again, a place where we see growth. My children came through the school system many years ago, and they were fortunate to have gifted programs. They were fortunate to have music programs. They were fortunate to have arts programs, sports programs. Schools today do not look like the schools when my children came to East Windsor. Very different buildings, very different types of students, very different circumstances, very different state statutes. And all those things come together and create a whole new school that we have to begin to look at and fund in a different way. And so I too support the budget that the Board of Education has presented. Thank you very much, and also thank you for all the time that you put into the town of East Windsor.
Keith Yagala.
Keith Yagala, 125 Depot Street. So first, I'd like to say I support the adequate funding for the fire district, as well as the library, as well as the school. I heard all the presentations by the, particularly by the library and by the district in terms of the presentation, and there should be adequate funding for those departments, including the school. Thank you for putting out the information tonight about the revenue and about the expenditures. However, before this meeting, I went to the, when I saw the posting, I went to the Board of Finance website looking for budget data, and there's nothing. There's nothing on there at all. The post-budget, there's nothing on revenue. I was able to hunt down, going through the Board of Education website, I was able to find a budget proposal which was posted, but that's different than the budget proposal that's before us tonight. And I was also able to find through the Treasurer's Department, Treasurer's Office, the posting of the post-budget, but that's different here from tonight. There's no revenue information at all on the town website, anywhere.
Can I just share that it is out there? It's under town financial.
I looked under there.
Oh, it's there now. If it wasn't there when you looked at it, it's there.
I looked about 5 o'clock. I didn't see it.
Definitely should have been there.
Okay.
But
I wanted to say, we need the revenue information. The public needs to see all this information, including the revenue information, to be able to understand and digest what's going on with the town budget, and to have a public hearing where you should have it on your website so people can go and see what the information is. I am concerned. I have one question about the special education. There's been a lot of discussion in the paper and at the meetings about shortfalls in special education funds. There's a discussion that students have come into town because the town offers very high quality special education services, and people have come in mid-year, which has created a special education deficit. My concern is that I would like to see on the revenue side the special education excess cost, the excess cost numbers, as well as the state agency grant money. The school does get reimbursement for students that come in mid-year for special education services. They have to apply and fill out the application, and then they'll get reimbursed at 75% of the excess costs, and they'll get reimbursed for the grants. We don't know what the revenue is for the special education budget. I see there's an ECS number here. I don't know if that includes special education funding or not, but we should know that. And I see also there's a fund balance transfer of $450,000 to get the mill rate changed to 2.77. So there's about a 1% mill rate and a 1% use of money from the fund balance to get to that number. So I'm concerned about the 2.77 mill rate change. And I'd like to see if we can get more information before the public hearing so we can digest it and ask questions. Thank you.
Actually, it's up there now.
That's on the
That's not the
website.
current one, that's the correct, that's the.
No, not the current one.
It's under which one? Where's it
It's under town financials on the front of the website. Go back.
Yeah, it's
So
right here.
when you pick this category, town financials,
Right.
these come up, and there's a historical expenditure, historical revenue. It has 3 years of actual, exactly those reports you're holding in your hand.
They're different than the ones that are handed out tonight.
No, they're not. These are the exact same sheets that you
You
have
see the color.
tonight.
See the color?
This is the detail. If you look behind your summary page, you will see
Right.
these exact same numbers.
I compared the numbers and they're different, but I don't want to argue
I
about
will,
it.
you know what, you can have an offside with Amy
Right.
at the end, and that'll work fine. One thing I just want to remind everybody too, this is not our budget yet. We have not touched this budget. We don't start reviewing this till today. So this information is the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Ed, and as of tonight, we'll start having our workshops, and when we make changes, it will be our budget. That's why we're listening to you to make those changes. Nothing, and not even the $450,000 is ours yet. So that's why we're listening to you, to see what you'd like.
It would be good if you posted it on your website so we could go there and see the information that's part of the public hearing.
Well, you guys will have to think about it. Charlie Nordell?
Charlie Nordell, 7 Granby Terrace. I just want to say, I'm in support of most of the budget. I think that we'll agree that more and more people are getting active and supporting the budget. We passed it for the first time last year, the first time in many years. And I think that in that consideration, that the Board of Finance should consider that most of these departments, these aren't asks, these are needs. And let the public decide whether they need them or they're just asks.
Francis Neal?
Francis Neal, 153 Melrose Road. I have 3 children in various stages of the school system and also active in the Board of Ed. I understand what's going on, but as a parent, I would like to support the Board of Education budget because I want my kids to be able to have quality education on par with what's around, and I know that all the work that's been done in the school system, they're primed and ready to go. And if we start taking money away from where it is now, my kids aren't going to have access to what they need. I have a couple of things also. I know the plan of conservation and development in town wants to, or is written, and it was the people's voice to say that they want the town to keep its rural character. I am also interested in keeping open space and ruralness in the town, and I know that we just finished the purchase, the conservation of a large tract of land on the end of Rye Street, which I think has used up most of the money in the open space fund. And if, you know, in the course of your deliberations, if you can keep in mind the rural character of the town and find ways to not infringe on that, I would appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Michaela?
Michelle Malerkey, 43 Graham Road. I want to thank everyone on the board for your volunteer efforts, as well as everyone in the room who serves on boards and commissions. So you mentioned you'd be reviewing this budget soon. So when you do, I'm asking that account 560 be labeled correctly. It states for this current year and proposed budget, Rockville VOAG. But as you mentioned, we have students, well currently we only have students attending the Suffield Agri-Science program, so I believe this tuition is going to that program, and I think for historical record accuracy and transparency, it should be labeled as such. My understanding based on the budget discussions in Board of Ed is that there next year is proposed expenditures for students attending both Rockville and Suffield, and I think it would be helpful if we had one line that mentioned that or 2 lines that mention that, just so people can find the information when they need to now and down the road. If Mr. Pippin mentioned some concerns about that, so just a little perspective as you're considering it. First of all, we have to follow Connecticut statute, and we are not allowed to discontinue tuition to Suffield or Rockville Science Center according to statute right now. there's policy around that, so it's not a consideration that could be used right now for budget purposes. However, I'd like to encourage anyone in the room and anyone listening to support enrollment in the agri-science programs through the budget and all other efforts for either of these fine programs. All the meetings, the town meetings I listen to and I go to in the last year, I hear two things. One, we as a town, we want to preserve our agricultural heritage. Two, we need new blood, staffing, volunteering, being part of these meetings. When we send a student through either of these programs, Rockville or Suffield Agri-Science, they learn parliamentary procedure. It is drilled into them. They study it. It's how they run their meetings. It's their education, so they're well versed in it. They're also required to do community service and encouraged to do a considerable number of agriculture hours in their town. It's a requirement. So, as an example, then I'll be quiet. My son, who's in the agri-science program, as part of his requirements was at the Northern Connecticut Agricultural Summit. Ran into someone in our town who's on the Agriculture Commission and said, hey, we have this agriculture commission. Why don't you come? And now that will happen. And it's because we're spending some money, which we have to do according to Connecticut statute, to send our kids. And they do come back and work agriculture. You know, he's working tobacco. So this idea out there that it's, you know, I don't want people to just see it as money. It does reflect our town stated on our website, stated in our meetings, values. Thank you.
Bob, can you just let these people, it's like they're stuck in the hall. Come on in. You can move across over here, and there's chairs over here.
There are individual chairs around.
Yep. Charlie, want to share?
I'm fine.
Okay. All right. Next is Marie D'Souza.
Yeah, Marie D'Souza, Penrice Road. I'm sorry, I missed a couple of Board of Selectmen meetings, so there's a couple of things I wasn't aware of. Just for clarification, if you could, on the fire services, it was stated tonight by this gentleman that there was a memorandum of understanding that was signed. I didn't quite understand, is that $264,000 going to be subtracted from the budget that will go to the Warehouse Point side so that they break even, or is it going to be an additional $264,000 for Warehouse Point over and above what they're already charging that side of town themselves? So I have a concern there. My other concern is if we go ahead and we approve the budget to give them the $264 and we don't get the budget passed, because we all know there's a lot of things happening in the state, people are concerned about their finances and concerned about taxes and stuff, and it gets rejected, then it goes back to 2% on last year's budget, which they weren't in last year's budget, so they would get 0. So we haven't, in a whole year, we haven't done anything to rectify that concern on the other side of town. I did read a memo that was put out at the last Board of Selectmen meeting where the chief in Warehouse Point put out saying that they're working on it, that they've made some strides, and it looks like probably next year they'll have some more. So my concern is if it gets passed to add the 264 and another year goes by and nothing's done, do they get additional money? Does it get stuck at 264 forever? These are some of my concerns, and I think we need to look into that.
Okay, that is the end of the list. Is there anybody else that would like to put their name on the list and speak?
Jim Barton, 158 South Water Street. Also want to speak to the Warehouse Point Fire District budgeting. 3 years ago, there was a plan and a shared goal with the town to allow the district to care for buildings and equipment that the town wouldn't fund. The plan was to levy a fire tax. The best laid plans of mice and men often go awry, and this one did as well. When the well-intentioned plan went awry, the Warehouse Point residents and businesses have paid 100% of the cost of fire service in Warehouse Point, while also paying their share of the cost of fire service in Broadbrook through taxes. Warehouse Point and Broadbrook Fire Departments are not redundant. They are both necessary components to fire service in the town. It's incumbent on all town residents to bear the cost of this critical public safety need. Warehouse Point Fire District should again be part of the town budget as it was prior to the 16-17 fiscal year. Regarding the, what Marie said, any revenue that comes into the fire district would be considered revenue, and after that is considered, then the need for taxes would be determined.
Thank you. Anybody else? We're all good? All right, then I'm going to call this, adjourn this public hearing at 7:28. And we will commence our workshop at 7:30. Thank you very much.
Jimmy Allen? Hi, Alan. It's Barbara.
Oh, I
Jackson.
Really? It's a nice place to visit. My company used to have a plant down
It's
there.
better than having to go to Michigan at this time of
So that's interesting right now.
I haven't gotten a lot of directions. These are the ones that ask. So I got a book, and I got a list of meetings, and that's all I've done. Like, what should I be doing with this? Should I be coming up with it? I'm feeling like a little onboarding, just a little. I'll do whatever I need to be an active participant, but I got no idea what's expected.
You know, they've had some exposure for recent, the recent. So I would just say, because I'm trying to think back, I mean, I was already in a couple of areas of Metro. I was wondering why still.
I'm not talking about it, I'm just talking
So I would say, you guys have an agenda. Thank you.
You have an agenda for you.
I have an electronic copy, but I prefer this so I can check mark it up. I feel like I'm getting somewhere.
Okay, well, at least it's out there.
So,
Yeah, okay. See you guys next week.
So see, I don't think so. I'm glad they feel the same. So here's tomorrow night. And I like the time when you're there. Tomorrow night.
Sometimes I think, I'm not loving that. You know, and then I'm like, so it is very much the answer.
I would never have something.
I got an email that I would never. The stuff was going to be in the Board of Finance mailbox, and I didn't even know where that was. I know it now. I'm just saying. I mean, I'm walking into a little blind, and I wanted to. The reason I got involved with my friends I've been to lots of meetings. It was nice of them. Actually, here I am.
But I'd never really done it.
Like I said, so I have this. I don't know.
So far, so good. The workshops. Some of the.
But it's okay, because he didn't want to go to UConn
I
anyway.
have a question, when do you start the meeting?
Like now, is that why you're yelling? Come over here. I'm gonna call this meeting to order at 7:30 p.m. We already did the pledge of allegiance, so we're good. Everybody's here, right?
He's just lucky that she's here.
All right, let's go, let's quickie. Hey, Alan, you guys want to maybe roll this way? It might be easier for you since we're doing workshops. It might be easier to go back. Oh, you need your cord.
That's okay, no, for now, I'm good.
You got an extension cord, you want?
Yes, 50 feet.
50 volts?
I think I'm good for now. If I give you this sign, I'm running out of battery.
I looked right at you.
Right out. The ceiling, I can just drop down.
Perfect.
No, one's
That's
revenue, one's
fancy.
expenditure,
No, you
one's
need
Board
both.
of Ed.
And one's Board of
So
Ed.
you want one of each.
I don't even want to know what those are plugged into.
Cameras.
Or not, you can find them under the telephone.
That's code?
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, you should.
Thank you.
Cameras are on.
All right, so we're doing town clerk first, guys. So off we go.
And she did not come because she would have had to drive back from college.
It was fine.
There wasn't really anything in her budget.
I feel like I should go around.
Under section 2. And it goes in the same order as our regular financial.
Everybody good? Got town clerk or?
Yeah.
All right, so it's under tab
Tab
2.
Second thing after selecting.
Did any of you get to watch any of the Board of Selectmen or go to any of the Board of Selectmen? Okay.
We did.
Awesome. All right, so it will help.
Just stick myself with a fork.
You have a fork?
All right. I thought you were talking to yourself. Not bad, huh? Okay, so just leave that.
So it's tab 2 in here and
This is good, Jamie.
Well,
So go to tab
that's,
2.
that's the
Tab
website.
2.
Yeah,
Okay,
let's
so
go
keep
regular.
turning to 4 ones. There you go, right there.
No.
That one.
No more snow. The trucks are put away. All the plows are out.
I don't know, none of them are Excel.
One of them is in the computers.
Well, look at this.
I can't see it either.
And you're right on top of it.
Okay. So. Town clerk. No salary change because everybody is out of contract. You'll see this later, down under contingency. I have a non-negotiated wage line now because we have 4 unions out of contract. So her only increase is 2% to her part-time person. She has a 15-hour week person. She has a decrease in her professional services, and that's because she was able to get one of her services cheaper. And a tiny increase in supplies and equipment. And overall, she's going down $207, which is a 0.15% increase.
Now let's complain about that.
That's town clerk.
Bob, for the union part, and I know that you have that salary, that negotiated line, out of the 4 that are out of contract right now, how many are you close to? How many are in arbitration? How many are?
See, supervisors are in mediation.
Okay.
The dispatchers are progressing very slowly. The police are, again, kind of progressing slowly, but we don't have another meeting date set up. And the clerical are just going in to negotiations.
Thank you. All right, so you guys are good with that? You all good?
And and I forgot to tell you, the yellow highlights are what Board of Selectmen budget changes. So these are accounts they changed. And there's actually a summary sheet, which you guys got this file at home. There's an actual sheet for changes, and it literally has every change they made. From the presentation of their public hearing that was held February 4th, I think. That's the number that was presented, and these are all the changes. The top ones are kind of technical changes, either things that the math didn't add up or something we found was different. So those are actually like technical changes. From here down is things the Board of Selectmen made. These are ones I actually made. Like the water bill. We got a bill from Connecticut Water Company after we had already submitted the budget that we were going up. And this is our new money. If you take the monthly amount times 12, this is the number we needed to get us to that letter, to match the letter. So these are things I made. Every from here down is what the board made. And they did make a total of $1.4 million of cuts, but $600,000 were CIP. Because the ask was for 1.5, and they cut it back to 884,000. Which is close to the 883 that's in the current budget. So that is a tab on your guys' sheets next to the historical one. Registrars?
Yep, registrars.
Registers came in with a couple late changes. They increased their printing line and their media card line. The media cards is because they have to have 3 machines now at each location, and prior they only had to have 2. So this is the cost of 2 more media cards tied to having backup machines if something goes wrong. This is tied to having no primary in their budget for the municipal elections. So they added that there. So those are late changes that came to us. I think those are under the technical changes in the change sheet. But that was their total, and it's a $5,925 increase over the approved budget, which is 1819 budget right here, or 9.27%.
There's a new Republican registrar of voters, so she needs
After the school.
certification.
Yes, we did. Which is a big portion of that increase.
Right. Well, and the others are
The media
for
cards.
necessity ones,
Yep.
not as those. Any questions on registrars? Up to treasurer.
Let's see. My budget went up $6,000. I have a new request for overtime, and the question was, why are we doing that? We do not historically budget for overtime, even in departments that historically have overtime. So we let people do comp, but then they don't have time to take their comp. So I have asked for $2,200 of overtime. That is for end of the year stuff, either for audit or 1099s and W-2 stuff that needs to be created for our employees. Everything else, my professional services is just what I pay Paylocity to do payroll. There's nothing else in that line other than the Paylocity charges for payroll for the entire town. I did ask for more travel, but then a town car came available, so it was reduced, which I was fine with, back to what it is now, and we will be using the town car for some of our travel, instead of our own personal use and getting mileage back. And the only other one is my raise, and no staff raises. The other 2 people in my salary full-time line do not have any raises in there, because they are in a union that is not negotiated.
education and dues, that is for just
Mostly
you
me.
and an assistant or no?
Yep, well, it's actually all three of us.
Okay.
I have an assistant who has her certified financial planning or professional designation, so she needs 30 hours a year. I have a CPA and I need 40 hours a year. So that is the cost of the two of us together.
Any questions on treasurer for now?
So then we have Board of Finance and Insurance and Pension under review. Board of Finance, okay. The only change I have here for you guys is the audit, which is based on the third year of a 3-year agreement, is going up $500. And as you can see, it was 37.5, 38, now 38.5. And then the other thing is our annual report. The new picture style was $3,000. I only charged $1,500 here because we didn't have any more money there, but the rest went to printing in the Board of Selectmen's budget. But the cost is $3,000, so I have adjusted the annual report cost in your line to be $3,000 that we actually paid this year. And that's all that's in the Board of Finance. Because the annual report does belong to you guys, and me as the staff person. Are we good for insurance retention?
Sorry.
Okay.
We'll come back.
Okay, insurance and pensions, we have lots of these going on. Our health insurance, our increase is actually 12.89%. But we have only a little tiny increase, and this is because people didn't take insurance. So we had positions in the budget that had insurance in them, and then when people got hired, they didn't take the insurance. A family is about $30,000 to the family. It's about 33 if it's an HSA, and it's about 45 if it's a PPO. So we have a little tiny increase here, $23,000. It's in blue because I made these changes. The FICA and Medicare is just 7.65 of all the salary added up. And that was adjusted down as additional positions that were requested were not funded by the Board of Selectmen. So after they finished all their deliberations, I made this change on this line. Let's see what else we have. Pension is an actually determined contribution from our actuaries. 457 and 401A match is just a function of, these are the people who get 401A. The more people that come on that go into the 401 plan, the bigger this number is going to grow. Unfortunately, we don't see a lot of relief off the pension because that will be several years before that starts to go down. We still have many of our employees on the pension. Let's see, workers' comp. This is a flat number off from what we're currently paying now. This had surplus in it. This is the actual bill that we're paying. These help make up the difference of that non-negotiated wage change. I made in a new line. Let's see, unemployment is just a guess. You can see we paid it a couple times. We haven't really paid any this year. That's a good thing. But you need to have something in there. Heart hypertension, if it doesn't get spent in actual medical bills, it gets transferred to another fund. Or that if the claim does come in, there's some money available. Liability, auto, and property, this is based on trend of 3% because that was our lock-in. This will change by a little bit because we got told that we are actually going down a 0.5% instead of going up 3. So this number will change. It will be a little better by the time we start to look at numbers. But this is what it was when these guys set their budget. Employee tuition, this is bonuses if somebody gets a certification. So when my person got her certified public finance officer certification, they got $400. Somebody gets their tax collector certification, they get $400. So this is what this is paid for. You can see it was paid here, and I think $800 was paid in the 15-16 year. So as people have gotten things, but nobody has gotten it this year, so nobody. We do have an assessor in classes now that will be eligible for something when she gets to her point that she gets certified. Deductible is just for if somebody crashes a car, there's a place to pay it against. Clearly, this was not a good year. Yeah. So far, we're doing pretty good on the others. This is probably just negative because something hasn't been charged there yet. So the money came in from the insurance company, but maybe the expenses didn't get paid yet. And then this is the 27th payroll. These are all the days that can't get paid in July that belong to June. And that's just a function of math. So that's what the increase is overall, a 0.17% increase, $6,514. And these are as transparent numbers as you can get in this category. There is nothing in there that's not there in black and white.
To assessor.
I think our assessor's here. Yes? Helen's here.
Oh, you're doing so well.
That's not my budget.
And I can't see that far. What's the green
Come on up.
number there?
194, 615. It's exactly the ask you asked
Okay,
for.
so I have the most current and my left,
Yep.
that's all. I just wanted to make sure. Really, the only increase in here is our mileage. We did have an issue with mileage in the current fiscal year, so I asked to increase that a little bit. I've rearranged a couple of categories. Our subscriptions are now under supplies and equipment instead of dues and education. But all in all, there's not much of a difference. 3,625 is the difference between last year and this year.
And all the staff in that, all three staff in that department are out of contract, so you can see the salaries is just the salaries that's in there currently.
Any questions yet? Or?
It's pretty straightforward.
What was the increase in professional services?
Personal property audits, we do. It was hard to tell in the previous budget exactly what was allotted to do them. So I tried to put that in professional services with an actual amount, breakdown amount.
And you'll see that actually in your book. Below all the budgets, we ask people to put together the detail, what makes up professional services, what makes up travel, what makes up education and dues. And I asked people for comparatives, but Helen hadn't been here last year, so she really doesn't know what was in there. But she put in there what she thought she needed. And, but other departments, you will see comparatives as you look through the detail for each of those budgets. And that will be something I'll work hard on next year to make sure everybody does it, not just some of the people. I did ask everybody to do it, but not everybody went back and did it.
Any other questions right now?
We do have another one for her Board of Assessment fees.
And that's pretty much what it was, is what it is. Don't foresee any changes.
So that's $1,500 for the recording secretary and $50 for professional services. For a total of $1,550, which is no change. And $1,296 was spent last year.
Last year was the revale year, so might have been a little bit higher than what this year will turn out to be, maybe close to the same.
You guys are all set right now? Okay. Tax collector. I swear I saw you walking. I knew I saw you.
So I think the biggest change you're going to see is under professional services. The way things were done in the past years, I would get a large quote from my software vendor, and I would give it to the IT department. And so a lot of that was with that department. So this year, we're trying to make sure everything is in its proper department. So a lot of my bookbinding and bills and stuff like that has now been brought back to my department, and that's why that large increase is there, and it's been taken out of IT. And that's what you're going to see is just a redistributing of those services. So it will come out of IT and into my tax collection professional services. When they do a quote, they just give this huge, massive quote, and I mean, they have it all over the place. You know, this is the mailing, this is the bills, this is, you know, sorting, and so I had to strip it down, and that's what this is trying to get everything properly where it's supposed to be. So that's the biggest change you'll probably see this year.
And then I have two technical adjustments to make here because the numbers you guys have in your detail should be supplies and equipment at $19.94, which needs to go up $164, but then travel can go down to $416. So that will be a savings of $429. So overall, there will be a decrease of $265 once I do those technical adjustments. And that was my fault. I changed some of the numbers on the redo, but I didn't change all of them. Some got left as the original numbers. We got a second budget in.
So I have a question, not to jump ahead, but then shouldn't the professional services and IT be reduced?
Well, there's other things added to it.
Okay.
And I think Joe's here, so I don't know if you can talk about what took up the.
No, I don't mean to jump ahead, we'll get there.
I think it was in software costs, and I don't think it was in professional services and IT.
In the previous years, it was just handed into the IT budget as 17,000 something. So, and that's how it was paid. It was just paid out of the IT budget.
But as software support?
As, yeah.
I'm trying to remember where it was.
Yeah, the people who used to pay IT don't work here anymore. So, we, you know, we're trying to make IT pay for IT, and, you know, professional services pay for professional services in their own budget. IT has professional services, but it only consists of a consultant and our internet cost, our Cox cable cost. We don't have paper products or supplies and equipment basically in IT. It's all software or professional services, that's it.
And my software vendor, we would get a discount because we're buying everything as one big bundle. We're getting the binding done, the bills done, the envelopes, so there was a discount. So that's why they quoted all this money. So.
It's one company that does everything.
Yeah.
It supplies the software and all her support.
I have a question. I know originally the tax collector and the treasurer were sharing a person. Is that still going on? I think
that's what's back in the budget.
So was it originally going to go? It was originally going to be realigned, right? And
the tax collector wanted all of it plus a little bit.
Okay.
I still wanted part-time.
So it's still in your budget also?
So now you will see 8430 in both our budgets.
Okay.
So it's back to 9.5 hours in each budget, which is the current arrangement now. It just wasn't working that way.
Okay.
So the way it is here is the way you guys want it.
Yes, not the way I want it, but that's the way I'm going to get it.
Answer that question.
So Okay, so that's my question. So this is your budget, but did you put in a different budget?
Yeah, it's right next to it.
Yeah.
If you
I
look
put in a
right
different
here,
number.
Yep.
she put in 18,937.
Yeah.
She was looking to go up $10,000 and change.
Because I was gonna take all of their budget and then put it up, I wanted to get like 24 hours, 25 hours a week. That's what I wanted. So I was gonna take theirs plus a little bit more. And that's not.
So is the person spending about that amount of time in your office, or then spending some?
None.
None in your office?
Well, that's not true. They would go over once a week, offer to do more, and
She would do filing once every couple weeks.
yeah.
Well, I was not getting 9.5 hours a week, even though it was budgeted that way that I was paying for it.
Right.
And I could use somebody to do Excel and spreadsheets and
She
all this
offered.
stuff.
She offered. She was quite proficient in Microsoft, but it was not taken.
Richard, if I could say something, and that's the person who was being shared has left, so now we have an opening. So that might change the situation too.
Well, I'm going to relook at that
Yeah.
because we've, in 5 years, replaced that position 4 times. I can't hold someone there. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to entice somebody with a few more hours, and because I require them to go to school so they don't put the town at risk, and it's hard to keep somebody in there when I say, I don't want you to take vacation from mid-June to mid-August, and I don't want you to go on vacation from mid-December to mid-February when I got everything good. So it's a kind of a quirky type of job for me to, and so that's why I was trying to give it a little bit more. But I did the best.
And then increase in supplies and equipment, it says office needs. What are the office needs?
Sure, we have a broken chair, we have a broken mat, it's got a hole in it this big, sit in a chair and it collapses down, so, you know, we gotta replace an office.
Okay.
Now, we have revenue on here. Do you want to go to the revenue sheet? For the tax section?
Okay. Yeah, that's because she's here. I would say no, but I mean, because you're here, that would probably be advantageous.
So this sheet here, which you guys also have, is the three-year revenue analysis. So this doesn't have the tax revenues plugged in as it does on the summary that was handed out, but it does on the detail. So basically, our grand list, as adjusted for last year, went from $959 million to $942 million. That $18 million drop, when we did valuation this year, it went up 15, but it went up 15 from the 942. So it is still $3 million less than it was last year. So the number we used in our budget was based on the 959. So starting out of the gate, we are $87,000, $88,000 in the hole in taxes if you take current grand list at current mill rate. So basically, last year's reval number was down, but it should have been down way more than it was. So when we did reval, we were really $18 million more short than we had been. Some of it was Board of Assessment Appeal stuff, court cases where somebody took us to court to get their stuff lowered. But some of it was exemptions that were improperly recorded on the grand list that should have been, because they were exempted from taxes. So that's where the tax revenue stands right here. On that summary sheet, it's filled in, so it shows that you need to go up for a 6.51% increase in overall expenditures. You have to go up 7.87% in taxes to cover it. So this is a piece of that. The other two pieces we have in here is, we left prior at the 60,000, which has come down significantly from the others, but there's nothing to collect when you collect it all. And so Patty's done a great job collecting it, keeping on top of people. So she's collected great amounts in the last 3 years and a lesser amount this year, but the 60 is what we went to last year, and the 60 is what she feels is appropriate for this year. Motor vehicle sup has been significantly higher, 334, 458, and 354. We currently have a budget of 300. She wants to go to 275, so that's a reduction there. Interest and liens, significantly numbers, but this goes to with the prior taxes. The more you collect, the less there is to collect, the less interest and liens you're going to gain. So we were 293, 255, 306. We're 97 on a 175 budget this year, which we will not probably make. So she's looking to go to 75. So those two reductions also add into needing to increase taxes more. When you have reductions in other types of revenue, then you have to increase your taxes more. So those are where our revenues tied to taxes stand current.
Everybody leaves.
Amy, is the one for Walmart in there now? It is. That was $154,000.
That was a refund, yeah.
The refund of $154,000 we just signed off on because of their fight with that. So that's material.
Yeah.
It's material.
Stuff like that, really.
And it happens every time.
Yeah, I know. It's their standard procedure to do that.
The nursing homes are in there too, and
Yeah.
that's painful.
Yeah, I saw
That was the
I
big-
saw those.
Yeah,
That was
they
the
are.
big one.
So, have stuff like that, and there was a lot of, Helen came in and she did a lot of cleanups on the grand list, so, I can't keep up. Start chopping away at me like that. I mean, I can take a few hits, but I can't take what she's done to me between the court cases and the events. I just can't keep up with it. So unfortunately, that's where we stand. We do have one case that I'm hoping that will come in, the court case that will come in. It certainly won't fill this void, but it's going to be part of your taxes, so I'm hoping that we will pull some of the water coming in. But the other large case, which you all know, the SJK, I'm not feeling too confident we will see any of that money in this year. Not feeling it.
Yeah, feeling it.
Not feeling it this year. So, and after that, it's, I normally do 2 tax sales a year, and I'm thinking of dropping down to 1 tax sale a year. You just can't keep beating people up. It's the point where you just gotta let that.
Any other questions, Linda? Town planner, E&Z, ZBA, EDC, WA.
So many of you don't know me, I'm Ruben Flores Martin, I'm the town planner. I'm going to feel good. This is my first budget, and hopefully we're going to be getting some of this, so we can continue being forward thinking and producing great things for the county. The biggest change here is on the salary side, as we provided some information about creating a new position of a planner. The reason for that position is that we have a significant uptick in development projects, but also we have a backlog in terms of the planning initiatives that we're supposed to be implemented through the plan of conservation and development from the last 2 versions. We have to move forward with those initiatives as they are positive for the town. We do have some dollars allocated for professional services. These are mostly for implementation of economic development commission tasks, such as the website and different things that we're working with them, actively working with them. I see that travel was somewhat changed. I'm fine with that. Also, the advertising, there's a new line for that. As for the public notices for the public hearings and all that. And that's pretty much where we are right now. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
So basically, his EDC position or his other planner position, strategic planner position, was cut by the Board of Selectmen. So they put the salaries back down to what the current budget is, so that's just the three full-time people that work there. What the Board of Selectmen did instead was give them a 19-hour-a-week, low-level clerical person to help in their office instead of this position. But when they eliminated this position, they put back in the EDC money. So their ask was only for $6,500. You guys actually made it $2,650 for them last year, because last year we had the same ask. There was an ask for an EDC position in the selectmen, and you guys didn't approve it, but instead gave them $20,000 for professional services for helping with some of that EDC stuff. So that the board put that back in, and it's just split between these two lines because there was a complaint that with professional services having advertising in it, people think there's a lot of money in professional services and want to cut it when advertising is a legal requirement. So I have broken out advertising in every single budget that had advertising. So the sum of these two, as you see here, they wash. There's no change from current budget. If anybody has any questions on that.
I know, we talked about not getting the necessary things out of professional services. So the legal ads and all of that are separate on their own.
They are all out.
So that we haven't, I'm sorry, somebody was saying. Oh, okay. You want to talk about? Oh. Go ahead.
So this clerical person in the part-time salary line, there seems to be discussion that the view permit is not being maintained. Is this something that this person would be able to do? Would you be interested in taking that on?
So this is a recent development that I am becoming aware of. I do have another option that perhaps you guys could entertain, not at this moment, but we have an administrative assistant. Perhaps that person can be reclassified as a planner and allocate some of those dollars so they are equivalent to the town planner, to the assistant town planner position. That way, that person, we would have 3 planners on staff and we could share the load between the 3 of us. You wouldn't need a new body, so to speak.
Any other questions now? Before we go back, approve, or start getting down to it? Any questions of him at this point? Nope. All right.
Well, he has,
P and Z.
Yep. Planning and zoning is the same budget.
Yep.
ZBA is the same budget. EDC is the same budget, but there was an ask. There was a $5,000 increase in professional services. I don't know, Ruben, if you want to talk about that.
So it was pretty mostly about, when you're talking about economic development, it takes a lot in terms of being present at events and, different professional settings. So we need to have a presence in those, like having a booth, having a pay for registration and what have you. So there's different ways of going about that depending on what funding allocations are available. So, and mostly not with so much discussion with the casino, with a new governor coming in, and there's a lot of deliberation in terms of industrial hemp, cannabis, different things that were not during the previous administration that we would certainly make some major inroads if we position ourselves appropriately. So these things take time and they take resources.
And inland wetlands is the same, $1,800, no change. Is that all your groups?
So
Yes.
Is there a rationale why it was cut from 8 to 3,000 from the selectmen? That was cut by the selectmen, did from 8,000 to 3,000.
Right.
Yeah, they cut it back to what it was
What
this
it
year.
was before.
And nothing's been
Nothing's
spent
been spent this year, so.
Did they, was there,
75 to 23.
what was the rationale behind were they planning on doing something different, or it was just like,
Because if 3 wasn't spent,
but we went at 8.
Oh, so last year's money wasn't spent, so that's what the reasoning was?
And nor has any money been spent this year either. Their actual for 228 is nothing. And last year was 75, and the year before that was 2315.
Do we have an active EDC that meets on a regular basis?
We have an active EDC, but they are not meeting on a regular basis because of conflicting schedules, but also in terms of quorum. So it's one of those issues that, you know, there's the will, but somehow we can't make it work on their end.
Anybody else? On to Finland.
Thank you.
All good. Anything else for that section?
Historic
Yep.
is the same number, but nothing spent so far. Ag, same number, nothing spent so far.
Is that the same reason? Are we not having meetings because we don't have quorums, or that we
I
don't
think they're
have
having meetings,
members?
but I think they're having meetings, but I think they are covering their own minutes instead of having the recording secretary do them.
I was on the Ag Commission beforehand, and that's basically what they're doing. There was a member that was taking the minutes and doing it.
So, it just seems, why are we carrying it then? And that's awesome, I think they're phenomenal for doing that. So, but I hate to take them.
Well, there might be something that comes up during the year that we need to participate in,
Yeah.
or they need advice, or...
Is there a way to get in touch with the chairman of those boards and find out?
Albert Grant's the chairman of all of
And I met with him today about open space.
Gotcha. All right, well, let's just keep that on our radar, because it seems to be, we keep it in every budget, and they are awesome doing their own minutes, so it seems. All right, selectmen activities and fees, legal ethics, charter revision.
So selectmen,
Maybe we need to talk about the reduction in professional services and go past the advertising. We do a lot of advertising.
I did the same thing here. So I did two things. This number was 10402, but it was three pieces. It was a recording secretary, true professional services, and advertising. But if you added these three up, they didn't equal the total on the top. So if you look at those technical adjustments, you will see an adjustment tied to this. But then I did the number of meetings. First of all, this doesn't divide out by the 125 that we pay somebody to do the meetings. So I said, okay, realistically, how many meetings do we need? You do 24 regular meetings, 2 a month, plus 10 special meetings. I think this is 35 meetings at 125 is this price. So I have reallocated it to be 47 for the advertising, which is the number that's been traditionally in there. 43.75 for 35 meetings for the recording secretary for the Board of Selectmen. And then this leaves them $2,500 for any other professional service they need. We have totally overspent the current professional service line. And we are through February on here.
And just what was in the professional services that is overspent is, as Amy said, we were doing recording secretary, the regular Board of Selectmen, special budget meetings, public hearings. Any public hearing has to be noticed in the paper, advertisements for all town meetings, classified ads, CCM job bank listings, RFPs, legal notices for ordinances, and associated public hearings with that. Then in addition to this year we took some of that money and we used it for 2 studies at the Broadbrook Mill. We had structural engineer come in to see if the Broadbrook Mill building could be saved, and she concluded it was structurally sound. And then we had another engineer come in and tell us what kind of toxic chemicals were in that polluted area. So those were two expenses we hadn't anticipated. Unfortunately, we had money at that point in the public professional services, so we were able to use it. Other things that come out of there is like the Chamber of Commerce membership dues, the InfoShred services, also the newspapers that the town buys comes out of that finances too. So it's pretty tight, and we do the best we can. I guess the only other thing that's an increase in there is the community outreach. And the $2,000 is what is used for the Board of Finance, and it will be used to send out a flyer when you guys approve for the deliberations and preparation of the referendum. But other monies we took out of there, like refixing cameras, and, so anything that we do with these cameras is public outreach. Also, it would be nice, and things that we could do, we'd like to put out a flyer, and not, well, two things really. One, kind of like a brochure. Most towns once a year put out a listing of numbers for that you can contact, events that are in the going on in the Park and Rec district. Put out a mailing of what's available in the town, and not just rely on the website. People get things in the mail. That's it means more. We're trying to get people involved, and just some also our website to keep it current and interesting and draw people's attention to it. It would take some funding to produce videos or something like that to keep it current. So we'd like to increase the amount of money that's used for public outreach. And I think if you go back and look at the survey that was done, the three most important things were one, community outreach. That was the most important thing of all. And another thing was communication between all the town, and another one is transparency. And really, that line is what has to deal with that. So underfunding that is really, I don't think it's a good thing to do.
So who would be maintaining that, and who would get the brunt of this work? Volunteers or somebody that's already working here, or?
It would, we really haven't said much. If we put out a flyer, which I think we should do at some point, a lot of people want to know what's going on in the town, and I know one time we put out an annual report, kind of like just state what we had accomplished so far this year or something like that. So that'd be done by the staff. Now, if we were able to put out a booklet that showed what the town was doing, that would also be done by the staff, but it would involve all the departments, especially Parks and Rec, and Public Works, and other, we have things from the other departments too, if they were having events. And then the website, that would be, we might have to hire someone to do video recordings if we had an interview or someone that wanted to an interview. And of course, the cameras, that would be professional service. That would be someone coming in. What we're thinking about is putting some boxes in that I guess would reduce the feedback. So sometimes you hear a squealing. If you don't, so it would cost probably $1,500 to get rid of that squealing. So those are the things.
Any other questions for now? All right.
Cities, fees, and associations. The number is just a little bit higher than it was in the current budget. Current budget is 140,056. Their adjusted budget is 148,96, with 500 being to Fort Town Fair. They are looking to increase our contribution from 500 to 1,000. And the only big ask that got changed was the cemetery got 20 this year, asked for 40, and the Board of Selectmen cut them back for 20. But everything else is very small changes.
Probate court and things like that based on changes from you, right, Amy?
What was that?
Like probate court?
Well, that would be if we got a bill that, we would ask the probate, we ask everybody. So we went to North Central Health and asked what their fee was. We went to the mental health and asked them for their Metro Hartford Alliance. So each of those is asks from the different organizations that they're going to. So legal, I just put in the same as is in here currently. It's my best guess, based on what we have spent as of February. I know labor is over now, I think, but town council is still under. So the 180 and the 80 are my numbers based off last year, the current year, the 18-19.
With everything, basically all the contracts being open and negotiated, do you think that's going to maybe go up this year? Or?
Well, we're already over this year of the 80, but we still have money left in the town council, so, and that will all be labor. And we shouldn't need extra next year, at least for the whole year, because at some point those contracts should settle. From mediation to arbitration, it will be a set period of time and they'll be done. So I'm thinking the 80 should be good for next year. Does anybody have any questions? Nope. Charter.
How about, Method? But it didn't change for them.
No, they're in the same spot.
Yep.
So here we are. Ethics. No money spent. I guess that's a good thing. And no money spent in any of the other years either. But we did the same 500 that they did the prior year. And I don't think that's one where they're meeting and not. I think there's just no business.
Yeah.
Charter revision. It got reduced to 5 meetings at 125. Yeah, what was that? 5 meetings at 125.
Got a little more.
Based off 2 July, 2 August, and 1 September. Because by September, the questions have to be set to go on the ballot for November. So the original ask was for 6 months. The change of the Board of Selectmen was down to 5 meetings.
Since they're working on the most important document of the town, is there a way that they could move here and be able to be recorded so the public can see it? Or is that not an option?
We asked
That
that.
is an option.
Yeah, we asked that actually when we did fund the recording secretary, but didn't get a response. So it's up to them.
Can we get there? Contingency. Now technically typically your charter says it can be 3% of the expenditures, but it is not. What it has in there right now is the same 50,000 you guys have done historically. And typically this money isn't spent here, it's usually transferred somewhere else. Somebody runs out of mileage, somebody runs out of professional services, we transfer out of here to other places. So that is the same ask this year. This is a new ask, this is non-negotiated salaries, and it's really where those numbers should be. Whatever contracts or people's individual contracts that are not settled should really be in this number. And this is just expansive of all the contracts that happen to be out of contract right now. This 14 is actually an accrual for the supervisors union that actually went out of contract June 30th, 17. So they are actually in their second year out of contract. And this is an accrual I made at the end of the year as my best guess.
I would say too, if I may, about the contingency, I think it's a good thing, and I like what Amy said, that when something goes over budget that you hadn't planned for, it's good to have the contingency there. As you go through the budget, I know prior years, for example, the senior center said, well, if our refrigerator breaks, we'll need $500 or $1,000. So they put it in the budget. But you could take it out, things like that, out of the budget. If you were willing to come back to contingency, if one of those unusual things happened, you wouldn't have to budget for it because you know you have that cushion in the contingency. You'd have to have that mindset that that's one of the reasons for the contingency. That would allow you to reduce the budget in some areas.
Any other questions? All right, so that's where we decided to end for tonight. You have two options. You can either, if you have any questions, any changes you want to make today, anything you want to discuss today, we can go ahead and do that. We have a meeting tomorrow night where we're going to do Board of Ed and capital improvements. What we can do at the beginning of that meeting before we spend time with them as you guys look this over tonight tomorrow morning and do your regular jobs. We can talk about it then. But if there's anything right now that you're seeing that you want to delve into right now, we agreed maybe a 9 o'clock stop time. We've got about a half hour left. So, I mean, feel free. Completely up to you guys. And Alan, as I said, you're an alternate, but you're part of this whole discussion. Sorry you can't vote, but that's, you know? So, anything right now sticking out or want to discuss? Or you can flip through. I mean, you've got time to look at it. I mean, sit and look at it now. Actually, how about we take a 5-minute recess and, all right? We still gotta make a motion.
I'll move to take a 5-minute recess.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion clearly passes.
He's going.